once again to another episode of Happy Brain, Happy Life. My name is Dr. Myrelis Aponte, Dr. Mimi for many of you, neuropsychologist, brain health coach, and my goal is to help you think, feel, and act better than you've ever done before while teaching you simple strategies that can improve your quality of life and your brain health. So, everybody wants to be happy, right? Well, my goal is to put some thoughts together, some simple ways that you can learn to improve your brain health. So, let's get started today. Today, I want to talk to you about how to change our thought chemistry. What does that mean, right? Well, our thoughts are actually chemistry. And our brain, if you've seen some of my previous episodes, I explain how our brain really has three main factors, right? So, our biological factor, our anatomy, right? How it's structured, how it's composed. Number two is our chemistry, and it means we are completely made out of diverse chemicals that balance themselves out within our body. That's what we call homeostasis. And number three is our physics. So yes, the energy, the electricity, if we could call it that, right, in simple words, that go through our body to make every function work out. Now, our thoughts are a combination of all of these three factors, but there is one piece that actually gets constantly changed and is our chemistry. Now, did you know that negative thoughts produce negative neurotransmitters? What? What does that mean? And what it means is that if we insist or practice or have gotten used to or have a commonality of always thinking in negative thoughts, what we are producing within our body are neurotransmitters that produce actually stress levels. And so even though I just heard this last week and I wasn't really, I'm not really connected to this information at all because it said, let's get used to stress. There is no way that our bodies need to get used to stress. Stress is an alarm system, right? Stress is the way our bodies respond to situations that shouldn't be there necessarily in the first place or are our alert system. So we do need stress to understand that something's happening outside our comfort zone, of course. The problem with stress is that we make it a habit, that we get so used to living under stress that the only thing that we are producing in our bodies is negative neurotransmitters. And we do not want that either. We do not want our body getting adjusted and adjusting its neurotransmitter to living under stress. That is not how our body works. Stress is actually, we have two types of stress, right? But one type of stress is the excitement one, right? The one that keeps us like excited about something. So we call that stress, but that is actually the positive excitement where dopamine levels are up and we just get all worked up about something that is exciting to us in the positive realm of what stress would be, right? We're getting ready for competition or we're getting ready to show something that's important to us. So all of a sudden we have this high level of stress, but it's a positive excitement stress because we've been working towards that. Now, the negative side of stress is the one that triggers our scary alert system, right? Is where fear kind of kicks in, is where all of our nervous system starts reacting. We get sweaty palms. We all of a sudden just go in this even mental block because the neurotransmitters that are being liberated during those moments are the ones that just make us stop. And so those are the ones that we want to learn how to actually change around and change our thought process so that we can create more of the positive stress moments, if I could explain it like that. And there are many ways that we can do this, and it actually impacts how we're changing negative neurotransmitters. And I don't think we really don't think that any neurotransmitter in our system is negative. It's just alarm systems, right? We don't want a fire alarm to be triggering the whole day. We don't want the car alarm because somebody's trying to get in, right? Triggered the whole day. We don't want our home alarm to be triggered. So we want something that will give us enough awareness that so that we're able to change that system and produce different results. And that is what I mean about how to change our thought chemistry. And there are plenty of strategies, simple, that will help us move through the emotions that we're feeling in a stressful moment so that we're able to change that switch, and produce the neurotransmitters that give us more excitement, peace, understanding, and at the same time will allow us to think, feel, and act in a better and positive way. Does that make a little bit more sense? So we don't want, acetylcholine is, there's so many neurotransmitters that will just trigger fear and either a stop, right? A freeze or a flight, right? Let me get out of here, kind of run away from the lion that's running right behind me. We want to trigger the endorphins. We want to trigger the happy dopamine moments, right? We want to increase the serotonin that'll give us a good, feeling of satisfaction. So let's think of ways that we can actually and consciously develop those thoughts and be the owners of the changing the switch for our own chemistry, right? And so let's start with something, right? Let's start with in psychology, right? And you know that I'm a neuropsychologist. One of the main therapies that we use to change thought, and it has been used way before so much neuroscience was developed. And I love the fact that it has continued to progress and to develop in the sense that now we understand that we can actually ingrain it or support it, right, with neurochemistry. But CBT, we call it CBT, but it's actually cognitive behavioral therapy, right? And many of you probably are listening to this and say, yes, I've been through, or I do CBT is the short name for it. And it's actually one strategy that has shown to be very effective in changing specifically negative thought patterns, right? Because this type of therapy actually helps us think about where are the negative thought patterns coming from? How have we been using them? When and where have we been using them? And now give it a new meaning, right? Identify them individually so that we are able to challenge those negative thoughts and beliefs and now replace them completely with positive and realistic ones. Now, sometimes the realistic piece, I'll give you a sense into it in a second, but it is very, very effective in establishing a stop sign. And I many times use this in a number of workshops and strategies. I use a whole bunch of different symbols to represent what CBT, how CBT can help us. But think about um, a traffic light, right? And how that traffic light has the red light, the yellow light, and the green light, right? And so let's think of that first step of stopping and completely saying, this is not it. And creating those moments of stop. Now I believe, right? That's my personal opinion, not based on necessarily research, but my experience of almost 20 years working with CBT is that this is the hardest part, is finding that stop. But we are capable of it. That's why we do it accompanied, right, by a psychologist, by a therapist who has knowledge in helping you find and connect that stopping sign that will work for you. Because once you have identified how it's easy for you to give it a stop to the negative thoughts, then the yellow light, which is the rethinking process, is the analyzing, is the evaluating the experience, is that process of giving yourself the opportunity to think of new ways or think of new possibilities, will lead you to that green light of, now I'm able to produce positive thoughts. Now the key to CBT is that you do have to produce a positive um, impact or the positive result of those thoughts. If you're not able to get there, if you don't get to the positive side of it, then we are not really creating that change in the neurochemistry. So very clear, and sometimes we use different, everybody's going to have a different one, right? So but one of the most simple ones is just giving a clap, stop, right? And I stop that thought. I tell myself stop and make some kind of gesture. I love using the clapping one. I'm very, if you see me, I'm very Latina, of course, right? So I am very movement connected. My brain needs to move constantly. Maybe you are not such a mover, and so for you, it might be a thought, it might be producing it with your mouth, it might be identifying something that will help you create that thought. But certainly, CBT being one of the main strategies that we use in psychology, I encourage you to find somebody to accompany you in creating and helping you through those strategies, because certainly is one that, as you repeat it, and as of course brain and memory is about repetition and repetition, right, and practice, and sometimes we think of repetition as monotonous. I think of it as practice, and the more you practice it, the more your brain starts understanding it, and then the brain understands, oh yeah, this is my new way of thinking, this is my new way of doing things. And so not officially, but we think of, one negative thought is kind of equivalent to 5 to 7 positive thoughts, right? And so we really need to practice that new way of thinking more to be able to teach the brain those new patterns in the neurochemistry, and that we're able to produce the adequate thoughts. That is why I'm going to talk about it in one more moment, but physical activity is so important to creating and changing that thought chemistry. But I'll talk about it in a second. The second one is mindfulness. Now, mindfulness meditation, and this includes a whole lot of pieces to it, right? If we look at mindfulness on its own as a strategy, there are plenty of mindfulness strategies right now. I encourage you to research more on it. But one of the things of this being mindful is that you're able to bring yourself and practice that, that moment of awareness, right? Again, same as CBT, one of the things it's going to create is the opportunity to create the awareness that you are having negative thoughts, and what do you want to do about those, right? Once you are aware, like I told you, the stop sign is the hardest one, right? Especially think about, when you're in a 2 3 lane uh high, not a highway, but a big road, and all of a sudden, this red light comes in, and maybe you're going 50 miles per hour. Because it's big, it's a 3 lane, so we're comfortable, and all of a sudden I run into this red light. We sometimes have to slam on those brakes, right? And so it is, and it's not necessarily comfortable, but at the beginning, you do have to make the effort of finding what your red light is going to be, what your stopping sign is going to be. Now, within mindfulness, one of the things that we do is not just recognizing the negative thoughts, but we embrace them. We think about them. We use our thought process to create more of, okay, how is this negative thought benefiting me or not, right? What has it been creating up until now? And now what positive emotions could I bring out of this experience, right? Out of this moment. And so in the way that we are constantly thinking about why am I recurrently thinking these negative thoughts and how they're coming to be, um, we will be able to create new positive thoughts. Now, the same way at the beginning, this is why you need, a coach. This is why you need someone with you to help you through this process, because on our own, you are where you're at right now because of the thought processes that you've had up until now. But if you have somebody that can accompany you to improve those thoughts, then your chemistry starts changing and eventually it starts becoming way faster. So, for example, if you knew Dr. Mimi, I don't know, 15 years ago, one of the things was everybody was like, Dr. Aponte. You see how I don't call myself by Dr. Aponte anymore? Because Dr. Aponte used to be the, military grown girl that came from military school and had military parents, and my rules in my head were very strict, very rigid. And so my thought processes tended to be very black and white. Either you did it right or you did it wrong, and if you did it wrong, you were on my blacklist, right? So I had to learn to change my thought chemistry, to change my thought process, and to be way more flexible in my thinking process. And that took a lot of mindfulness. That took a lot of exercising, and it still does. I can find myself in the military spot at times, and then I go and think, it's not about me. It's not about, this person is not talking to me from towards me, but they're actually talking towards themselves. And it takes a process to process those thoughts. So understand that this is not something that we change in one day. This is a process that takes repetition and takes creating new patterns for your brain, but it is possible, especially if you find a good coach, somebody who will accompany you, and lead you through those change in thought processes. But also, physical activity, right? So physical activity is key. Physical activity is the main producer of brain chemistry changes. It'll increase your serotonin, it'll increase your dopamine, your endorphins. Those are the happy, positive neurotransmitters that we all know. There's plenty more. Listen, there's thousands of neurotransmitters. These are just the names that most people know and kind of are able to relate with. There are plenty that we do not even know what the role is. So the brain is still a universe to be discovered. However, what we do know is that we are able to produce happier thoughts and happier feelings, right? A feeling of well-being when we're engaged in physical activity. There's nothing better for me. I always share, my physical activities that increase my endorphins and make me feel the best are, when I'm dancing. Oh my goodness, when I'm dancing, you won't see a bad face in my face at all, and for the next couple of hours for sure. When I am swimming is a great physical activity for me. That's what works for me. And when I am certainly with my horses and horseback riding. But those are my three. What are your three? Find your physical activities that work for you. Don't go with the masses. Okay, going to the gym. If you take me to the gym, that's not my happy place. I can assure you. So going to the gym is not mine, but what is yours? Find the physical activities that Do engage your brain enough to produce and change your chemistry. And then, right after you have produced those chemicals, now do the thinking. Now do the mindfulness exercises. Now go to your therapy, and you will see the difference in how your brain starts understanding new patterns and ways of changing and transforming your thoughts. But last but not least is engage in activities that bring you joy, that bring purpose in your life. We are social beings, let me tell you. So for me, my house is always full of people. Sometimes I have friends that tell me, I don't know how you can do it. Well, I don't know how I would do without it, because I love having people around. I love having my friends around. And so having my house, those who know me, having my house full of people always eating, having fun, maybe the girls kind of, riding horses outside and just engaging in that social activity is what brings me joy. What brings you joy? Start doing more of that. And I'm not talking about playing, video games on your phone or at home. I'm talking about engage in activities that actually bring you joy. Having joy, feeling joyful, immediately starts changing your neurochemistry. The more you do those, the better your neurochemistry is going to be, the more homeostasis you're going to find, the more equilibrium you're going to find within your cells, the happier you're going to live. And that's the whole purpose of having a happy brain, to have a happy life. I hope that today has brought some insight to how important it is to take control. And I use the word control more as a basis of taking knowledge, taking consciousness, right, of your thoughts, because you are not the thoughts you have today. You can change those, you can transform those so that you can actually result in having a happy brain to have a happy life. Use your therapist and CBT, use mindfulness, use physical activity, use joyful opportunities to transform your thought chemistry. I hope that today's lesson has improved or given you at least some guidance and some insight to what your brain is able to do. And start today by thinking, what are those 3 things that you can do to change your thought chemistry today? See you next time.